It was past 2 in the morning when he opened the door to his own suite and found a woman asleep on the floor. She was still holding the cloth. A bucket sat beside her. She'd been polishing the low table and simply stopped. Folded down onto the carpet mid-task, the way a body does when it finally quits. He stood in the doorway. He did not turn on the light. Weeks later, he'd say her name in a marble lobby, in front of everyone who threw her away. But that came later. For now, just a sleeping woman. And a dangerous man with no idea what to do about her. The hardest men are undone by the smallest things. Here's where it ends, and it's why you clicked. A maid falls asleep cleaning the wrong man's suite. She gets fired in front of a full lobby by a manager who wants to look important. And the guest she was kind to is the one man alive who can end that manager with a sentence. If you want to see him do it, subscribe now and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I read every one. Now, let me tell you about May. She was the best maid on the 42nd floor, and nobody knew it but the other maids. She could turn a wrecked suite spotless in half the time of anyone else. She noticed things. A guest who liked the curtains a certain way got them that way without asking. She remembered which rooms had children and left the suites on the pillow the kids could reach. She was good, quietly. Completely good at a job the world had decided didn't count. She was also exhausted in a way that has a specific cause. Her parents were gone, both of them, within a year of each other. That left May, 24, and her little brother Yuto, who was 9, and a stack of bills that did not care how young either of them was. So, May worked. She cleaned the hotel by night and a laundry by day. She slept in the cracks between. She walked Yuto to school half asleep and picked him up half asleep and told him she was fine, because that is what you tell a 9-year-old. She wasn't fine. She was running on nothing, but she never let it touch the work. That night, she'd taken a double. Someone called out sick and she said yes, because yes was money and money was Yuto's shoes. By 2 in the morning, she'd cleaned 9 suites. The 10th was the big one on 42, empty, the guest out for the night. She started on the table. She knelt to reach the low shelf, and her body, without asking her, shut off like a light. She did not hear the door. The man in the doorway was named Kenzo. To the world, he was something people whispered about. He was the head of a family that was not made of blood. Men who feared nothing feared him. He also, quietly, owned the hotel, one of many buildings in Tokyo he held through names that were not his. He'd come up at 2 in the morning because he could not sleep, which was most nights, and he'd found a stranger asleep on his floor with a cloth still in her hand. He should have been angry. A man in his position does not tolerate strangers in his rooms. His men would have removed her without a word. He wasn't angry. He looked at the woman on the floor, at how deep she was gone, at the exhaustion that put her there, and something in his chest turned over that had not moved in years. He crouched down. Quietly, he did not wake her. He took the folded blanket off the end of the bed and laid it over her, the way you would for someone you'd known a long time. Then he sat in the chair by the window, in the dark, and he let her sleep. A dangerous man, guarding the sleep of a maid he'd never met, for no reason he could have explained. She woke at 4 and nearly died of fright. She scrambled up, the blanket falling, apologies pouring out of her before she was fully awake. She'd lose her job. She'd be arrested. She started gathering her things with shaking hands. "Sit down," Kenzo said. "Gently, nothing's going to happen to you." She didn't sit. But she stopped. She looked at the man in the chair, the guest whose room she'd fallen asleep in, and she braced for the cruelty she'd learned to expect from people who paid for sweets like this one. It didn't come. "When did you last eat?" he asked. The question was so far from what she expected that the truth just fell out of her. "Yesterday, lunch," he ordered food at 4 in the morning from a kitchen that jumped when his room called. He made her sit and eat before she went home. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't loom. He just made sure a tired woman ate a hot meal, and then he called a car to take her home so she wouldn't have to walk. "Why?" she said at the door. "Why are you being kind to me?" He thought about it. "Because no one's kind to me either," he said. "I know what it looks like when someone's running on empty. Go home. See your brother." She hadn't told him about Yuto. She looked back, but he'd already turned to the window. What she did not know was that Kenzo had watched her that whole hour and seen the one thing missing from his entire life. She had not fawned. She had not feared him for his money the way people feared his power. She had just been a person, tired and honest, in a room with another person. He'd been rich and feared for 20 years. No one had spoken to him like a human being in most of them. He wanted more of it. He didn't know how to ask. So he did a strange thing for a dangerous man. He requested that the same maid service his floor. Every night. And every night, for a little while, he found a reason to be there. They talked. Small things at first. He learned she took her tea without sugar. Same as him. He learned she was funny, dry and quick, when she stopped being afraid. He learned about Yuto, the 9-year-old who wanted to be an astronaut and drew rockets on everything. She learned he took his shoes off even in a hotel hallway, some old habit his body wouldn't drop. She learned that when he went silent, he wasn't cold, just tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. She learned that the men who waited for him by the elevator were afraid of him, and that he was gentle anyway. She never asked what he was. She'd learned long ago not to ask people how they got where they were. She only knew he listened like it mattered, and almost no one in her life had ever done that. One night she found him in the small tea room off the 42nd floor, sitting alone in the dark. He was making tea the old way, slowly the way his grandmother taught him, before the life took him. He made her a cup without asking. She sat. They watched the Tokyo lights spread out below and said almost nothing. It was the softest hour either of them had spent in years. He held the warm cup in both hands, a habit from being cold too often as a boy. She noticed. She noticed everything. That was the gift of her, the thing the loud world had never bothered to value. She saw people. And she had started, quietly, to see him. He asked about Yuto often, the boy who wanted to be an astronaut. Kenzo, who had done hard things and never lost sleep over them, found himself lying awake, wondering if a 9-year-old he'd never met had a warm coat for winter. One night a coat arrived at May's building. Small, blue A rocket stitched on the pocket. No card. She knew anyway. She cried in the stairwell, softly, so Yuto wouldn't hear. Not because of the coat. Because someone, finally, had thought of them without being asked. Here is the thing the story turns on. She was kind to a man the whole world was afraid of, and he had never once, in his whole hard life, been chosen by anyone who wanted nothing back. Two people the world had set down, learning each other in the quiet hours, neither of them in a hurry to be anywhere else. It should have been simple. It wasn't. In that world, nothing is. Word travels in a hotel. The other maids noticed May kept getting sent to 42. They noticed the guest there asked for her by name. They didn't know who he was. Neither did she. But a floor full of tired people watching one of their own get singled out is a spark near dry grass. Some were glad for her. Some weren't. And one of them mentioned it, quietly, to exactly the wrong person. The trouble had a name. Ito, the night manager, a small man with a large sense of his own importance. He ran the floors like a warden, and he had decided, weeks earlier, that May was trouble. She was too tired. She'd been seen leaving a guest's suite at odd hours. He didn't know who the guest was. Kenzo's name never appeared on anything, and Ito's small mind filled the gap with the ugliest story it could invent. He started watching her, waiting for a reason. He got one on a Tuesday. A wealthy guest, a woman used to being obeyed, complained that a maid had been slow bringing towels. It was nothing. It was a lie, mostly told by a bored woman who liked to watch staff scramble. But it was enough. Ito had his reason. And he chose to use it in the worst place he could find. He waited until the morning rush. The lobby was full. Guests checking out, a tour group, businessmen with coffee. And in the middle of all of it, in front of everyone, Ito called May over and fired her where she stood. He did it loud, on purpose. He wanted the audience. "We have standards," he said, loud enough for the room. "We are not a shelter for tired girls who can't stay awake. You've been sleeping in guest rooms. Do you know how that looks? You're done. Collect your things and get out. And be grateful we're not calling the police." May stood in the center of that marble lobby with 100 strangers looking at her, and she did not have the strength left to defend herself. She thought about Yuto's shoes. She thought about the rent. She felt the floor tilt. And not one person in that crowded, expensive room said a single word for her. That was the part that would have broken her. A whole lobby of people, and not one of them willing to be kind. Except one. The elevator opened at the far end of the lobby, and Kenzo walked out. He took in the scene in a single glance. May, gray and shaking in the center of the floor. Ito, chest puffed, enjoying himself. The crowd, watching a tired woman be crushed for sport. Kenzo did not raise his voice. He never did. He simply walked across the lobby, and as he walked, the hotel staff who saw him began to go pale, one after another, in a wave that moved ahead of him like something breaking. Ito saw the staff's faces change before he understood why. He turned, and he found himself looking at a guest he'd never bothered to learn the name of. "You just fired her," Kenzo said. "Quiet, say it again." "Louder, I want to be sure I heard it right." "Sir, this is a staff matter. I don't know who you think," Ito started, in the tone small men use when they still believe they have the high ground. "My name is Kenzo Arai," he said. The name did a strange thing to the room. The businessmen went still. A concierge dropped a pen. Ito's own senior manager, who had just arrived, made a small sound and bowed so fast he nearly fell. Because everyone in the hotel business in that city knew that name. It was the name behind the company that owned the building they were all standing in. Kenzo owned the hotel. He owned Ito's job. He owned the marble under the man's shining shoes. "This woman," Kenzo said, and he said it to the whole room now, not just to Ito, "is the best worker in this building. She cleans 9 suites while you stand at a desk feeling important. She fell asleep once, after a double shift she took to feed her brother, because she is carrying more than you will carry in your whole soft life, and you fired her loudly in my lobby for an audience." He let that sit. "You wanted people to watch." "Good, they're watching." Ito had gone the color of the marble. "Mr. Arai, I didn't know. You never do," Kenzo said. "That's the whole problem with men like you. You only look up. You never once looked at her." He turned to his senior manager, the one still frozen mid-bow. "Ito is finished, today, and May is not a maid here anymore." He looked at May then, and his voice changed, went soft in a way no one in that lobby had ever heard from a man like him. "She's going to run the floor staff. All of it. At triple what she made. If she'll take it." May stood in the center of the lobby, in front of the same 100 people, and this time they were looking at her a completely different way. She looked at Kenzo. Her eyes were wet. "Why?" she said. The same question as the first night. "Same answer," he said. "Because someone finally should." Ito was escorted out of the building he'd ruled 20 minutes earlier, past the staff he'd bullied for years, and not one of them looked up from their work to save him. He learned, in the length of one walk across a lobby, exactly how it feels. It's a lonely thing, to look for a friendly face in a crowded room and find none. May had felt it 10 minutes before. Now it was his. The last part is small, and it's the part I keep. May took the job. Of course she took the job. Yuto got his shoes and then some, and a tutor, and a wall he was allowed to draw rockets on, and the man who owned half the quiet things in the city started coming home some nights. To a small apartment. A 9-year-old explained the solar system to him with total confidence. A woman poured him tea without sugar and asked how his day was. Like he was a person, and not a name people feared. He'd had money for 20 years. He'd never once had that. The city told it wrong, the way it always does. They said a powerful man rescued a maid. Ito probably tells it that way still, if anyone will listen. But that's not what happened, and you watched it, so you know. A tired woman was kind to a lonely man when she had every reason not to be and expected nothing back. That was all. She didn't set out to change her life. She just refused to be cruel, even when the world was cruel to her. And it turned out the one person watching was the one who could see exactly what that was worth. Kindness is not weakness, and it is not a strategy. It's just who some people are when they think no one important is looking. And the strange, quiet truth is that someone always is. Never look down on the person cleaning the room. You have no idea who's about to walk in. If that moved you, tell me the exact moment you knew Ito had lost. The elevator opening, the name, or they're watching. Put it in the comments. Share this with someone who's been made to feel invisible in a job that kept the lights on. And if you want the story of who Kenzo was before that suite, the 20 years, the reason a man that powerful couldn't sleep, and what he was really doing awake at 2 in the morning, vote for part 2 below, and I'll tell you everything.